I'd like to call this meeting of the February Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission to order at 7 p.m. Our first order of business is the continuation of the public hearing for 2023-20, 19-lot subdivision north of Broadbridge Avenue. Is the applicant here?
Chairman, members of the commission, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices on Ted Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield. Here on behalf of the applicant tonight. Apologize for the error last month, but we are here. We have our engineer, Greg Podlusky's here, our wetlands expert, Bill Kenny's here. So I'll turn it over to them shortly. But just as kind of a brief intro regarding kind of the, I guess, higher level details of the project. This is for a proposed subdivision at property located at Broadbridge Avenue. It doesn't have an address, but it has a site map that was read into the record. And it's a property that's located in the RS3 zone. And the proposal again is to subdivide it to create 19 conforming building lots under the zoning regulations. Site's currently vacant. Its main frontage is along Broadbridge Avenue, but it also has access out to Ronald Road and to Teakwood Drive. So these lots are being accessed from all those different frontages that it has. The site's significantly oversized. It's over 11 acres. And the proposal is to have single-family dwellings on each of these building lots. Even after the subdivision, and I know this is more a zoning requirement, but I think it is relevant for the commission to know. These lots that are proposed will still have a significant size to them in comparison to the minimum lot area that's required in that zone. So in that zone, the minimum lot area is 10,000 square feet, and I don't know, in the previous application if this was really highlighted, what the size of some of these lots are. So, for instance, just to kind of run through them so you get a sense, Lot 4 is 13,787 square feet. Lot 5 is 14,500. Lot 8 is a little over 18,000 square feet. Lot 9 is 19,000 square feet. Lot 10 is over 14,000 square feet. Lot 2 is 30,000 square feet, so it's 3 times the minimum lot area requirements in the zone. Lot 14 and 15, which are in the regulated area, are 13,500 and 16,500 respectively. And Lot 19, which is also partially in the regulated area, is a little over 69,000, so almost 7 times the minimum lot area in the zone. So these are, for the zone that it's in, these are very large lots. They have a lot of excess size to them. If you look at them in comparison to some of the properties that are abutting it on Ronald Road, Glen Drive, on Teakwood, they're also sizable to, more sizable than those lots, sometimes significantly. So, I think it's one lot now, and I think people see it's getting subdivided in 19, and maybe there's a perception that this lot is getting cut up as much as possible. But really, if you look at the lot areas of these lots, they're really, these are nice sized lots. These are big lots for that area and for that zone. In addition to that, so in addition even to the bigger size of these lots, there's a significant amount of land that's being protected as either open space or under a conservation easement that would be in perpetuity. So, and it's beyond the requirements as far as their square footage that we're proposing. So now under this current application, and this is something the engineer will get into, but the there's been an increase in the open space provided in this version of the application. It's now slightly over 107,000 square feet of open space, a significant amount of which is wetland area. And the proposed conservation easement, there's two areas, and I'll show you on a plan, but there's one conservation area that is over 24,000 square feet that creates a considerable buffer to the wetlands. And then there's two additional conservation easement areas, one for just under 12,000 and another one for about 1,300 square feet. So we have big lots with a considerable amount of open space proposed to try to protect the wetlands, and also conservation easements proposed to make sure to create a buffer to these wetlands. I think it's also important to note that a significant number of lots are completely outside the regulated area. Guys, why don't you just grab the plans, the board with the plans? It was right here. So lots 1 through 7, lot 11, and lot 17 are completely outside the regulated area. So here's lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are completely outside the regulated area. So is lot 17, which is right here. That's completely outside. And lot 11, I say lot 11, lot 11's right over here. That's also completely outside the regulated area. So that's 9 of the 17 lots that are outside. In addition, the regulated area is outside the building envelope of lot 8, which is right here. You can see the regulated area is just over a tiny corner in the back here. Lot 16, you can see same thing here. It's in a corner. This is beyond this, so this is within the setbacks. You wouldn't be able to build in that area anyway. And lot 18, which is right here. And the building envelope there, you can see that dwelling is right up to the regulated area. So those lots, there's no dwellings proposed inside the regulated area. So the other is, if you look at the houses, on lot 10, that house is outside the regulated area. In lot 19, that house is outside the regulated area. So that's 14 of the proposed 19 building lots where the proposed dwellings are going to be completely outside the regulated area. So, again, I know it's a 19-lot subdivision, it's an inland wetlands application, obviously, but a majority of this development is outside of and a majority of the building lots are outside the regulated area. In addition, Teakwood Drive, the extension of Teakwood Drive, which you can see right here, that's well outside the regulated area. And really only a small portion of Ronald Road, you can see the red line there. All this portion of Ronald Road, the extension there, is outside the regulated area. It's just this portion right here that's within it. So I just wanted to kind of lay out those basics before turning it over to the experts on this. But before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to highlight some of the changes because this obviously was before you before. There were concerns raised at the last hearing, including from our neighbor, that it would require a sanitary sewer line easement that would go through their property, outside of our property. So we have changed that. I don't know if it's shown here on Bill's plan, but it's running right here, so it's now entirely within this property. No longer needs that easement through the neighbor's property. But one of the benefits is if this line were to be approved, it were to be installed, those neighbors on Ronald Road, I know there's a couple of them that are on pumps, they would be able to then connect. So that would be available for them to be able to tie into. Another change was the elimination of a building lot. So the prior application was for 20 building lots. This one is for 19. So one thing that did that lot was in this vicinity. There was a dwelling proposed here within the regulated area, and there was a dwelling proposed here within the regulated area. By eliminating that lot, not only did we lose that dwelling being within the regulated area, but this lot expanded. This is the really large lot that's like 70,000 square feet. So by making this such a big lot, we were able to take that dwelling as well and move that outside the regulated area. So it really benefited in two ways: removing the 20th lot, but also getting this dwelling outside of the regulated area. And that area right here, where the dwellings were, is now proposed. That's part of the additional conservation easement area. So now that's conservation easement area. There were drainage easements that were also in there that were required based on the old plans. Because of that, we were able to remove some of that. So, and then the other just point I'll make, which I already made before, but is that the open space has increased as well, in going from 87,800 to slightly above 107,500 square feet. So I just wanted to give that kind of intro, where we were last time, where we are here, the big changes. But I'll turn it over to our engineer, Greg Podlusky, who could go in through some more detail with that and certainly answer questions with regards to that.
Sir, could you spell your name for the record, please?
Oh, he's a card. Turn in a card.
Can we ask a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, you said the sanitary sewer easement, was that related to the property on lot 12, or did you say 19? I don't remember what you said.
So the sanitary line, correct me if I'm wrong, but the sanitary line used to, in the last application.
Right, was outside
There
of
was
the,
an easement that was proposed over, I think it was this property, right here, it was this one.
Correct.
Right, so it was supposed to go over this line, now it's been moved, so it's fully with this property.
where's lot 12?
Lot 12 is right here.
Okay, that's the one then. Okay, that's fine.
You don't see a building on it.
That's fine,
because
that's fine.
all conservation.
Okay, that's the same one documented here. Okay.
And I don't, because I didn't have the plan up here when I was talking about it.
No, that's fine.
But the conservation easements are here,
Okay,
the back of lot 13, and then this, what was lot 12.
right, that clarifies. That's perfect. Thank you. Okay.
All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Greg. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Gregory Podlusky, P-I-D-L-U-S-K-I. I'm a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, and certified floodplain manager. And I prepared the plans on this. Attorney Russo did go through, a lot of the big picture stuff, including the changes that were made since the prior application. And again, notably, we did have a house in this area that's been completely eliminated, and the house on this lot was moved over, so that we get a greater separation from the wetlands. The way that the project is designed right now, the only disturbance of wetlands themselves would be approximately 32 feet of a sanitary sewer crossing through the wetlands on a portion of lot 12, which is right over here, heading towards Ronald Road. That's the only disturbance of any wetlands on the property. There are just multiple repetitive sheets. It'd been requested that we separate all the various components on different sheets. I could go through them one by one if you'd like, or I could just give you the big picture view, which I think would probably serve better. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And I'm going to start with teak wood. As you can see, all of these properties through here, with the exception of 3 lots, are completely out of the regulated area. And these 3 lots, some of the portions of the houses, some small parts, some larger parts, are within the regulated setbacks. For stormwater mitigation, we've done individual stormwater systems, underground chambers that are designed to retain 100% of the 100-year storm off of the impervious areas. What this does is it goes and makes each individual property owner responsible for the majority of the stormwater mitigation associated with the project. The system has been designed so that the runoff from a 100-year storm is reduced both in volume and peak discharge rate. Honestly, that wasn't easy to do because these are type B soils with established forest, so it's got a very low runoff rate as it is, but we were able to go and make that work. And again, the vast majority of the wetland mitigation is owned and operated by the individual property owners. And if a system were to fail, it would be a problem for the property owner because they would have a soggy area in their front yard and they would be very motivated to repair that. The town engineer requested that we put water quality treatments chambers before the final discharge of road runoff, and we did that. We have all the standard soil erosion sediment controls, filter fabric fences. We do have erosion control blankets on the steeper slopes. It'd been requested that some of the areas we double up the filter fabric fence, whether it would be with a combination of hay bale and filter fabric fence, double filter fabric fence, or coir logs backed up by filter fabric, and that's certainly something that we're willing and able to do. And there's no issues with that whatsoever. Each house would have its own gravel anti-tracking mat during construction. And again, I'm going back to, I just have to stress, we're not disturbing any wetlands areas except for the 32 feet of sanitary sewer line through the very upper fringes of Block 12. It's the very upper fringe of the wetland soils. We're actually, although not directly a concern of this commission, we're actually going and putting in a cul-de-sac on Ronald Road where right now it just dead ends. The plows come in, they plow whatever's there, and we haven't had a problem with that for a couple of years, but they just plow whatever's there at the end, and there's no way around it. By putting the cul-de-sac in makes it a little bit easier. it's, that's the nutshell of the situation. And if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Go ahead, Blair.
So the 32, is that 32 linear feet you're
Correct.
talking about? So according to this third-party report, it's saying that that sanitary sewer line would cause a reported 636 square feet of direct wetland.
Square feet.
Okay,
Square feet versus linear feet. That's
Okay.
assuming it, basically, you're looking at a 20-foot swath for the installation, times the 30 feet gets you to your 600 square feet.
okay. I just want to clarify,
Yeah.
because it can sound deceiving, 32 versus 6.
Yeah, it also says Land Tech said they would not recommend this because pipes eventually leak and you're right in the wetlands. You're gonna discharge a
it's-
myriad of stuff into there.
It's certainly not the first installation of a sanitary sewer line in wetlands in the town of Stratford. I can't tell you where it's been done before. I don't have that information, but I'm certain it's been done before. It's been done everywhere. Every town that I'm familiar with, it's been done. It's done, you do it judiciously. You pressure test the line before you backfill to make sure there's no leaks in it. SDR 35 PVC is pretty much the industry standard. It comes with gasketed joints. It's it holds up very well to any sort of leakage, especially in an area like this where there's not going to be any heavy traffic over it. There's hardly ever even going to be any foot traffic over it due to its location. If it's a concern of the commission and it's a concern of mine, I would certainly welcome any input from the sewer department or sewer commission to make certain that it's absolutely protected. But there's nothing abnormal about running a short length of sewer line through an upper wetlands fringe. If we were going further down, going 200 feet through the middle of the wetlands, that would be a different situation.
And the only thing I would add to that too is that there's no laterals from where this is. So I mean,
Yeah,
that would
it's
be
a straight
somewhere where
line.
you might have a potential for leak. But this is just the main line. There's no laterals running off this easement where it's proposed.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the soggage if the thing fails.
I'm sorry?
This, when you talk about the stormwater,
Yep,
you have the retention area,
correct,
and that's on the homeowners.
correct.
If this thing does fail, these lots get soggy. That's what you said. Now, what happens to the basements? Okay,
That gives them even all the more incentive to repair and restore the system to the way that it was designed.
And all that cost is on the,
It's on the property owner, it is not on the
Okay.
town of Stratford.
There are 33 points on the analysis,
Yes,
basically, that the experts said need to be addressed.
yes,
We've talked about a couple of them here.
yes.
How do the others get addressed?
A lot of them, we did have
So Commissioner, we had a meeting, Zoom meeting yesterday, or no,
yeah,
Tuesday, was it yesterday or Tuesday? Sorry. We had a meeting with them to go over to understand their points more clearly. So we are working on revisions and responding to those comments. I know there were a few things that we felt could be made a condition of approval, should it be approved, particularly regarding the geotech, which I know is something that's usually left for the building permit phase, and then there were plan revisions. But we I think zeroed in through the conversation about what were their main points, and I think Bill's going to speak to some of the revisions that based on that conversation that we would make to the plan. But so we are in the process of responding to them, and if the commission would support it, we would ask for a continuance at the end of this hearing so that we could submit those revisions to all the comments, and then, obviously, then the experts and staff could comment on those revisions to see if they were adequate.
Good.
So, Greg, with this proposal, we're losing about 40% of the tree coverage? And is that correct?
I don't have those numbers, but that sounds in the reason, in the area of reason.
And so is it reasonable to consider that an area that's been dark, that's been a wetland, having that much light in there is going to have a serious impact on the quality of the wetland?
Well, first off, there's no tree cutting in the wetlands, but secondly, that's something that would be better addressed by our soil scientist.
Thank you.
Just one other quick question. As a point of reference to that map there, how far away are those power lines from that area? The UI power lines?
Round numbers, you're, from this line, they're anywhere from 100 to 150 feet to the west.
Okay.
This property line here abuts the UI property. And I seem to recall that the UI was 300 feet wide. That's strictly from memory. So round numbers, 100 to 150 feet from the property line to those UI lines.
Anyone else before Mr. Kenny comes up? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Kenny. I'm the principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield. I am a professional wetland scientist and soil scientist and landscape architect. My firm was retained to help with this project in a number of different ways. One was we went out and identified where the wetlands are, so we completed the wetland delineation and identified the different soils on the property, which ones were wetlands, which ones were not, marked the boundary of the wetlands, which the surveyor then added to the drawing so that they're accurately shown on the drawing. Then we conducted an inventory and an assessment of the existing conditions about the wetlands, the flora, the fauna, and looked at the functions that the wetlands are providing on the property. And then we worked with the design team to help design the project in such a way that we could minimize the disturbance to the wetland areas. And we put together a report regarding that, which was provided to you. And lastly, we prepared some two sets of plans that deal with replanting different areas of the property. One is focused on plantings in and adjacent to the wetlands, and the other is focused on street trees along the proposed streets. The drawing before you right now is the plan that shows the street tree planting. And then I'll share with you another drawing after that. But what I'd like to do is go through with you existing conditions and then proposed conditions, talk about potential impacts and how how the project has been designed to prevent those impacts where possible, and talk a little bit about that temporary impact with the proposed sanitary line. So the property is just over 11 acres. It's located just north of Broadbridge and to the west of Second Hill Lane, Ronald Road, Teakwood Drive, and Glen Drive. And there is the UI right-of-way to the west that runs north-south on the west side of the property. Property in this drawing north is to your right. Broadbridge is here, and the other roads are to the bottom of the page, and the UI right-of-way runs along the top of the page. West is to the top of the page. With regard to wetlands, the property is forested at this time, primarily forested. There's two wetland areas on the property. There's a wetland area in the southwest corner and another wetland area in the central portion of the property. Both of these are forested, for the most part, classic red maple swamps. The canopy is made up mostly of native trees. The shrub layer includes a variety of both native and invasive vegetation, which is pretty common in the wetlands in town here and other towns around the area. In the central wetland, there's a fair amount of invasive vines that are starting to smother some of the trees there and degrade their health, opening up the area to sunlight. And in the southwestern wetland, there is an area as you get closer to the right-of-way where there's more sunlight that there's common reed growing, otherwise also known as Phragmites. It's a invasive reed plant that you see in many areas of town, particularly as you get closer to the Sound. It's often associated with salt marsh areas, but also freshwater wetlands. And that extends off-site into the UI property, the right-of-way. The southwestern wetland is mostly a relatively flat area with areas of inundation throughout much of the year where there's standing water. And then the central wetland is more of a sloping system that slopes down pretty steeply from the bottom of the page to the top of the page west. At the most western end, it levels out a bit, but a fair amount of that wetland has a pretty good gradient to it, and you have groundwater seeping out at its eastern end, feeding that system. The proposed project includes, as been discussed, 19 proposed house sites with proposed dwellings and driveways. There's approximately in total and two proposed cul-de-sac roads, public roads. Approximately 2.2 acres of impervious surface is proposed, maybe 3.5 acres of ornamental landscape surrounding the homes and the driveways, and then 2.5 acres of protected open space that'll remain forested. Almost another acre of conservation easement protected area, so close to 3.5 acres of naturalized area, existing woodland that'll be preserved in perpetuity into the future, so about a third of the property. Then the site also includes the various utilities that are needed for residential development, the sanitary discharge to the public sewer off-site eventually, and then stormwater management system to help collect, treat, and hold back stormwater so that it's cleaned before it goes to the wetlands, and it's also detained during the larger storms to prevent flooding downstream. So the variety of measures have been included with the plan for that purpose. We considered the potential for impacts from the development. There's, as you are well aware, when you convert a forested area to a developed area where you have homes, structures, and pavement, you're going to change things that could impact wetlands. And so there's been the state, the town, has developed best management practices to help ensure that when you do a development like this, it can be done in a way where you can protect the natural resources such as wetlands and watercourses. And so we look at potential impacts in 4 different conditions. And 2 major groups are what we consider direct impacts, and that would be activities occurring within the wetland itself, such as the proposed sanitary line. And you can have those impacts in a short term during construction, or you could have an impact in the long term. Say you were to put a driveway across a wetland, and then that's an impact that's going to stay forever. Then we consider indirect impacts, and that would be something that happens outside of the wetland, such as changing the landscape from a forest to a street. And how might that affect the wetland itself? And so during construction, most of those, the potential for indirect impacts are primarily related to water movement, and whether it's sanitary or stormwater. You could have stormwater runoff at a construction site and cause an impact from sedimentation, soil erosion, and then sediment ending up in a wetland. So we look at those, and then after construction, you have stormwater running off a road or a driveway, carrying pollutants from that, and then that could have an impact on a wetland. So we look at those 4 conditions. So in the short term, there is a direct impact proposed. It's in the eastern end of this central wetland area. It's just at the eastern edge. As been described, what's proposed in that area is about just over 30 linear feet of the installation of a sanitary line to convey sewage from the eastern end of the site to the western end of the site so that it can go via gravity to the public sewer system in Broadbridge. So that's about 650 square feet due to that, assuming a 20-foot swath of land would be temporarily disturbed to put that sewer line in. When a trench will be excavated to put that line in, the line will be installed, and we've called for on our drawings that when the soil, the wetland soil in that area would be set aside, and when after this pipe is installed, the wetland soil would be put back so that the topsoil from the wetland is put back at the same grades and elevations that it exists today. So we'll put it back up at that upper layer, and then the area would be revegetated, and for the most part, not disturbed for many, many decades. I've been involved with wetland projects throughout Fairfield, Westchester County, and other parts of the state, and have certainly worked on many projects where a sewer line like this has been installed. I've been on wetlands where it was installed decades ago before I was involved, and I'm out flagging a wetland, and all of a sudden you come across a manhole and there's a sewer line running through that wetland, and it's really hard to believe that there's a sewer line there, because the way the vegetation comes back, it's hard to believe that anything had ever been temporarily disturbed to put that sewer line in. So it is pretty common practice, particularly because many of the wetlands are in low-lying areas. They follow streams, and that historically was where these main sewer lines were put through towns, because that was the easiest, and when these systems are gravity fed, so they're pretty much following streams, so they end up in wetlands along streams. So it is a pretty common practice. And working in current engineering standards and using current materials, that a newer system like this is a much safer system than the way it was done years ago. So in the short term, that is the only direct impact. There's potential for indirect impact from sedimentation, soil erosion, sedimentation. The project has a soil erosion and sediment control plan that Mr. Podolsky has prepared, and so it includes your traditional sediment barriers, such as perimeter silt fencing, as well as measures to help prevent erosion, such as phasing the construction. An important thing here is it does include phasing, so instead of disturbing the entire project development site at once, it's disturbed in phases, because if you can limit the amount of area disturbed at one time, that helps you to control the amount of erosion. So that's a good thing that the project includes. It also includes monitoring and maintenance of the measures to ensure that they're functioning properly. So, and it includes other measures as well, and the project engineer can certainly provide you more details with that. So we reviewed that, and it's our opinion with that installed according to town and state requirements and managed and maintained, that impacts from soil erosion and sedimentation can be avoided with the project. With regard to long-term impacts, so there's that sanitary line will be restored, the vegetative cover and the soils will be restored. So we do not see potential for a long-term impact with that improvement. And then no other activities are proposed within wetlands except for habitat enhancement activities, and that would be, we're proposing to control invasive vegetation that exists. We're proposing to remove debris. There's a fair amount of debris in the central wetland that has been dumped over decades by various people. This is the plan that we prepared. It shows the southern half of the property. The central wetland is here and the southwestern wetland is here. This is the wetland and buffer habitat enhancement planting plan. So around the central wetland, we're proposing to control invasive vegetation as well as restore, revegetate areas that in the buffer that border the wetland that will be temporarily disturbed to complete the project construction, and to replant the area where the sanitary line is proposed. In the adjacent to the southwestern basin or wetland, there is a proposed stormwater basin that's proposed there to collect stormwater and help and to treat it and detain it before that water is released to the wetland. And so that measure will help to protect that wetland from potential impacts from runoff from lawns or driveways or homes. With that basin, we are proposing an abundance of trees and other native vegetation to revegetate that area and make it a naturalized area. There's a second drawing with this drawing that has detailed specifications of how we propose to control the invasive vegetation and to plant the native vegetation. There's objectives here beginning at the top, and it includes the control of invasives, planting of natives. Another thing we're proposing is to put up demarcation features that would run behind the proposed residences. And this would be essentially a split rail fence or a wall that will run on the uphill side of the wetland buffers. We'll have a split rail fence that will help to control future potential impacts from the people who live in these homes, so that it's well marked where the wetland buffer starts and where their yard ends to help limit their potential for discarding waste of some type or another. So we're going to help mark those buffer boundaries, provide a maintenance plan for those buffers, and initially in the first few years when these things are getting established, it's particularly important to monitor them closely. So there is monitoring and reporting to your agency for 3 years after construction, after the planting is completed. And we'll be reporting to you on it. We would be reporting to you on an annual basis with regard to that. So that are for activities within the wetland and adjacent to it. And then, as has been discussed, there is a detailed stormwater management plan. There's certainly comments from your consultant, and we're working through those comments to ensure that the management plan complies with standards that your consultant has identified and the town standards and the state standards. And with adherence to those standards, those standards are designed for this purpose. And so it's my professional opinion that system functions and is maintained and managed according to those standards that the wetlands can be protected and there won't be an adverse impact from stormwater. There were a few comments related to wetland buffers and a question about increased sunlight from when you come in and open up, clear an area of forest and then open up that area to more sunlight. That will have a change on vegetation growing in that area and the microclimate. In particular, there was a comment about the area here because this buffer is south of that wetland area, and so they're getting more solar exposure from the sun in the south. So we are certainly pleased to widen the buffer there based on the comments from the town consultant, as well as planting evergreen trees along this area to provide mitigate the shade impact that occurs with the clearing. So you're gonna, when you clear, you have your canopy, before you clear all up high, and then by clearing a canopy on this side, all of a sudden you're getting exposure coming below the canopy that remains. We'll put evergreen trees here to filter that sunlight and provide shading that otherwise would be provided by the canopy. And changes in solar exposure is a common thing in the ecosystems such as these wetlands and other forests. You have storms and things like that, or you have invasive vines that kill trees, and so changes like that are a natural piece of a wetland. But certainly this change is occurring due to the development, so we're going to propose some planting to mitigate that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenny. Any questions before we call up Land Tech?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Kenny. So out there right now, we have a wetland in a low-lying area.
Yes.
And associated with that wetland, we have 11 acres of forested land. When it rains, the water that falls in that forested area percolates into the soil and recharges that wetland. It makes it a wetland.
Sure.
And that wetland depends on that water that's going in there to be of a certain healthy quality, a quantity, and at a certain flow rate. So it could be a wetland. So I'm having a little trouble thinking, when I think of that, there's going to be, where this 11 acres of forested area upon which that wetland depends is now going to be cut, it's going to be leveled, it's going to be filled in some areas, there's going to be building lots, houses, driveways, lawns, fertilizers, chemicals commonly used on lawns, that is not going to change and have in an adverse way, that wetland. That's the problem I'm having.
Sure. And I fully appreciate your concern with that, and everything that you described, the changes are substantially what will occur, except the entire site's not being cleared. There's a percentage that's remaining, that'll remain as forested, I think over a third of it. And this, the project stormwater management system is designed to deal with what the concerns that you raised. And a major component of that system is to collect the water from the roofs, from the pavement, from the driveways and the roads, put it into these subsurface infiltration systems to mimic what would happen in a natural environment. And the engineer, when you run the calculations, they have runoff factors. And when the rain falls on the ground of a forest, only a certain percent runs off, a low percent runs off, a lot infiltrates into the ground. When you have rain fall on the pavement, a high percent runs off and very little infiltrates into the ground. So with a project like this, and the state And the EPA, through studies throughout the country, they've developed these best management practices to mitigate for that change in development of a property. And the state has decided this is, they publish their manuals and they say, this is how we're going to protect the waters of the state, wetlands and watercourses. And they say, use these measures, collect the water, and for example, put in infiltration systems. So for each house and driveway, they're each going to have their own separate infiltration system where the rainwater will be captured and put into these chambers, these shallow chambers that are below the ground. They'll fill up and they'll allow the water to slowly infiltrate into the ground and then slowly make its way to the wetland. It won't be exactly as it is today, but it's been found that if you follow and use these types of measures, it is adequate to maintain the wetlands in a condition that's acceptable. And that, it controls the water flow and the water quality. And yes, so.
Thank you, Joe. Angela, did you have a question?
Yes, it's more of a technical question, I guess. So you keep talking about the pipe. You're saying it's 30 linear feet, okay? How big is the pipe in circumference?
Yes. 8 inches. 8 inches.
Okay. And in comparison to the room we're in right now, how long is 30 linear feet?
It's probably from the edge of that door to the corner, I would say. So anyone else can correct me if they want to. But.
Count the times, Bill.
Yeah.
They're 12 inches.
Yes, Joe, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Kenny, one last thing. In areas where we have intensive development associated with wetlands, does the health of the wetland tend to improve or degrade?
Could you, if, it depends what type of development you have. I would say, and then there's also a third option, does it remain substantially the same? Certainly the Clean Water Act at the federal level that came into effect in the early 70s, and then the states all implemented these different management programs for managing stormwater. So development that occurred before that did not have these stormwater best management practices, so there's been significant degradation of streams and wetlands near developments that were completed before the 1970s. Since that time, since that law was put into effect, and each few years, they keep improving these measures, and so now it's at a point that it's been very closely studied, and many universities study this, and so they have come up with the way through the use of these measures and adopted by these agencies that you can maintain the health of that system through the use of these measures. I wouldn't say, one way where you get an improvement is in instances where you redevelop a piece of land that was developed previously before the law without any best management practice, and now you come in and you put a new development in, and there's great opportunity to improve that wetland or stream by using these measures, these best management practices for stormwater management. So then you could see an improvement in the wetland or watercourse.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. At this time, I'd like to ask Land Tech to come up and give their comments. These are the third-party consultants that the applicant has hired to review this application.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, the town hired them. I'm sorry. My mistake.
Good evening. I'm Brian Carey, professional wetland scientist with Land Tech. We're an engineering and environmental firm located in Westport, Connecticut. Tonight with me is principal at Land Tech, Andy Salmolides, who is the professional engineer who reviewed the application. I'm going to keep our comments fairly brief because we did prepare a fairly lengthy technical memorandum which has been submitted into the record. It has also been shared with the applicant and the applicant's design team. And it's also been shared with you, and I believe the public. It's been posted on the public website. That being said, we do have some concerns regarding some of the design criteria that's been provided as part of the application. We did review the previous application in 2022, did provide comments on that. We are an independent third-party reviewer. We do not come into towns or on projects to try to basically kill projects. We try to look at where they're deficient in the designs and how there are impacts to wetlands and how that basically functions in the terms of the Connecticut Inland Wetland Act. That being said, if you do look at our memorandum, you'll see that there are concerns regarding stormwater quality, the way stormwater quality was designed, grading plans, high-level types of issues with the overall design. The applicant has said that they are working to remedy and address all of the concerns that we've raised within our memo. Our memo was provided them on February 12th, or a day so afterwards. Some of the things we're requesting from them are things that are going to actually take a lot of time and some field work to complete. They've agreed to address all of these concerns so that the ball is really in their court at this point. I don't want to go and read every single thing, and I'm sure because of the time and the amount of public that's here that would like to speak that you don't want me to do that either. I can answer any questions specifically to anything that's located in our memo, but I think most of it, I shouldn't say most of it's straightforward, but I think if you do go through it, you can kind of understand some of the technical issues that we've raised and put back on to the applicant to address. And until, there's some of the things in there that are basically game changers. They need to address them, and then some of them are just, typos or something like that. So they're not all weighted equally, but you can see, you as the commission, you understand which ones need to be addressed more forthright.
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Thank you.
Kelly, do you want to say anything? You have some comments you want to read?
I don't have any questions for Land Tech at this time, but before I do read these comments, does the commission have any questions for Mr. Carey?
So just in general, when you have 11 wooded acres and you're removing 2/3 of that, are there studies to say what we can expect in terms of best practice? Because best practice is always evolving, and best practice is always leveraged against the economics involved in our towns and trying to please all parties and have development. So what's the reality?
So just from a general level, there's, as you said, the Inland Wetlands Act is a balance between development and protecting inland wetlands. It doesn't function in a vacuum where one has weight over the other specifically, but it is, developments need to be completed in a fashion that are protective of wetlands. Obviously, when you're removing 40% of a forested canopy and changing that into a development, it's about how you mitigate those impacts, whether it's at the source or as holistically throughout an entire development. Any impact to land is obviously going to have some downgrading impact, but if they're able to, provide a thorough planting plan, the water quality treatment, addresses the water quality treatment trains, adjust things like thermal inputs that have direct impacts to wetlands, then there is a process where there could be a balance is struck. In this particular case, we reviewed it. We provided our comments and concerns as they relate technically to our understanding of best engineering practices, the DEP Stormwater Quality Manual, and in the terms of the Inland Wetland Act. So we're waiting for that additional information to basically come in and then provide one final review.
And just as an add-on, and for my own education, does the water mitigation processes help with pesticides and other toxins that enter those systems?
So generally, what downstream defenders and the tertiary treatment, they generally do not remove pollutant loads that are microscopic at that level, nitrogens and things like that. Again, the literature, whatever's being specified, we'd have to look at that and compare it to the stormwater treatment train. But generally, things like pesticides, those are sequestered and bound to sediments. So generally, it's a sediment management issue downstream, or if you're containing that into a sediment trap or something like that. But things do get through those systems.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, Mr. Koenig, could you tell me if this wetland in question here tonight, does this form the source of the Yellow Mill
So it's in
stream system?
It's in the headwaters of the Bruce Brook watershed, which does go out to. No, it doesn't go into the Yellow Mill Channel. It goes out into
Johnson Creek.
Johnson Creek.
Yeah.
And out that way. Yes.
Bruce Brook.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I thought this was Tracer Brook. Doesn't this go into Remington Woods? The Bruce Brook is 99 Holly Lane. I think
That's
we're
right.
conflating them.
I'm going through the watershed map in my head. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. It does go through Remington Woods, so it would go into the Yellow Mill Channel. That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
Thank you.
Kelly, you'd like to read your comments now? Or have comments?
Sure. So we do accept public comments via email, and over the past 3 months, I've accumulated some public comments that I will read into the record. If I read your name and you're here and you would prefer to read it, just raise your hand and I will let you read your own comment. Otherwise, I will go ahead and read all of these. All right, Kathy Ross. We are unable to attend the Inland Wetland Watercourses Commission meeting this evening and would like to provide the following points to be read or provided to the Commission during the public hearing portion of the meeting, if possible. Item 1, we are very concerned about the current flooding issues in the Topaz Place, Broadbridge Ave, Eastgate Lane neighborhoods and believe that the construction of Teakwood Estates would exacerbate the problem. 2, the developers have stated that they plan to include a pumping station in the development. This would require that the town monitor and maintain it in perpetuity. The developers are not permitted to obligate the town of Stratford for such a responsibility, and would this pumping station solve the flooding anyway? 3, in spite of assurances from the developers, the project's stormwater runoff would not be properly handled. 4, the sensitive wetland areas in Stratford are already under extreme duress due to the rapid pace of wetland development all over town. In addition to increased flooding in flood-prone areas, we are also quickly losing native species as a result of excessive wetland development. Our regards to you and the Commission for hearing our concerns. Grace Arpey? No? To the Inland Wetlands Commission. I oppose the proposed 19-lot subdivision near Teakwood Drive. I have followed this proposal for a while and it has been rife with issues from the outset. I find it very concerning that the applicant's proposal for new homes are in or very near areas that are defined as poorly drained per their application. Should this proposal be approved, are future homeowners going to have to contend with flooding or stormwater management system issues? While the applicant's job is to have this approved, after which they can just walk away, any current or future homeowners in the area will be dealing with problems after having homes built, in and near wetlands. It is also short-sighted in 2024 to allow sizable areas such as this one to be stripped of their tree canopy and value to local wildlife. This is to say nothing of the applicant's disregard of the commission and the public by canceling at the last minute or not showing up to meetings without any prior notification. This is a move that's been used time and time again with different applications, and there's no longer any excuse for it. Thank you for your consideration. All right. Christine Robbins. I would like to express my serious concern related to the development of the wetlands area in this portion of town related to the Teakwood development. Wetlands must be left undisturbed to absorb rainfall and property topography to prevent risks to homeowners. Storms within this area present themselves quite differently than when I first moved to this area over 30 years ago related to climate. There is a need for a serious study and consideration prior to making any hasty decision which would not only leave potential residents as the caveat emptor, but also present serious issues to the town of Stratford related to its conservation efforts, which could be costly and serious when pre-planning and research are not held to account as an initial step. This decision by you as a committee is one that will impact this entire town, and I do not support development without environmental commitment. Claire Barber. The town of Stratford has continued to put in infrastructure that decimates the natural beauty and ecosystems of our town. Destroying more wetlands for the sake of the town making more money is an insult to the dwindling wildlife population and those who already deal with severe flooding issues in our town. This town again and again refuses to put in the unbiased work to make sure plans like this are actually going to be environmentally and developmentally sound. Projects like this only make it harder for Stratford's hardworking taxpayers to feel comfortable staying in a town that does not value its land or citizens. I oppose this project. Danielle Cunliffe, sorry if I'm butchering your last name. I am writing to express my strong opposition to the Teakwood development. I am deeply concerned about the potential impact this project may have on both wetlands and the risk of flooding. Wetlands play a crucial role in maintaining ecological balance, supporting biodiversity, and acting as natural buffers against flooding. Disturbing these delicate ecosystems could lead to irreversible damage, affecting not only the local environment but also the broader ecosystem. Moreover, the proposed development raises serious concerns about flooding issues in the area. With increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, it is essential to prioritize sustainable development practices that consider the potential consequences on water management. My house is located in a flood zone and I am required to have flood insurance. I have gone through the process of obtaining an elevation survey to confirm we are in fact in a special flood hazard area. I am fortunate that our house has not flooded. However, I feel that this project would change that. Smart decisions need to be made, and they should not be at the detriment of the houses that have been part of this area for decades. I urge you to oppose this development. Sustainable development that respects the natural environment is crucial for the well-being of current and future generations. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Dawn Akerson. The Teakwood development absolutely should not happen. The wetlands and surrounding woods near Broadbridge, Ronald Road, and Teakwood Drive should be left alone to absorb rainfall and be home to the wildlife that lives there now. Not only will the structure aggravate flooding in the surrounding neighborhoods, I am not confident that the water flow and quality wouldn't be compromised. Hundreds of animals would be displaced, putting them and the surrounding neighborhood in jeopardy, not to mention add a lot more traffic to an already NASCAR-like strip of road. This is why we hear of bears and other animals entering yards to forage for food after their habitat is taken away. This is a matter of safety. We have coyote, bobcats, fisher cats, and fox who live in these kind of places. Where will they go when you blast the land and chop down the trees? They will go into surrounding neighborhoods or into the roads. Water already floods these neighborhoods, and more construction will only exacerbate the situation. Enough already. A development here will only worsen conditions of land already stretched to capacity. No developments on or anywhere near the wetlands near Teakwood Drive. Deborah Brelsford. I am a hard no for developing Teakwood Estates. The wetlands and surrounding woods near Broadbridge, Ronald Road, and Teakwood Drive should be left alone. Not only will the structure aggravate flooding in the surrounding neighborhoods, water already floods these neighborhoods. The wetlands affected by this proposed development are an important protection from flooding in Stratford. A development here will only worsen conditions of land already stretched to capacity. My request is no developments on or anywhere near the wetlands near Teakwood Drive. Thank you. Don Brailsford. It is such an important matter for Stratford that I'm taking time to write to Kelly Kerrigan to voice my strong request against development of Teakwood Estates. This is an area already known for problematic flooding. Please keep this land as open space. Please save Stratford from making a huge mistake. To build on wetlands would exacerbate the problem. Donna Zingo. The Teakwood development absolutely should not happen. The wetlands and surrounding woods near Broadbridge Ave and Teakwood Drive should be left alone to absorb rainfall and be home to the wildlife that live there now. Not only will the structure aggravate flooding in the surrounding neighborhoods, I am not confident that the water flow and quality won't be compromised. Hundreds of animals would be displaced, putting them and surrounding neighborhood in jeopardy. This is a matter of safety. Water already floods these neighborhoods, and more construction will only exacerbate the situation. Enough already. A developer here will only worsen conditions of land already stretched to capacity. I bet this is the same developer who attempted to put condos on Broadbridge Ave and lost that fight. He was then granted an okay to build some houses in the same area. Since they widened Broadbridge Avenue, it has become a speedway. More housing would put even more traffic on an already overburdened road. It seems to me that this will lead to even more accidents. Let the developer seek other areas and leave nature alone, please. Somehow I feel that the town is just considering the increase in revenue for their coffers from this or any new development, and not the comfort, safety, and security of neighboring residents. Politicos claim that we must stop global warming, but yet they constantly sell the ecological environment to the highest bidder. Let's consider the future for once. Maybe whoever it is can expand his developments in his own backyard. No developments on or anywhere near the wetlands near Teakwood Drive. Thank you. Karen Tracy. I'm writing to express my opposition to the proposed Teakwood development. As you know, inland wetlands support diverse ecosystems, and development can disrupt these habitats, leading to the loss of biodiversity. Wetlands also play a crucial role in flood prevention and mitigation, acting like natural sponges, absorbing excess water during heavy rainfall and slowly releasing the water to reduce the risk of flooding elsewhere. Certainly this past weekend's storm should be a cautionary lesson, a lesson that developing what little open wetlands we have left will have a significant impact on surrounding neighborhoods. I'm very concerned that a development will aggravate what already occurs during heavy rain. Backyards quickly turn into lakes. I literally saw a neighbor pumping water out of his backyard into the street to run into the storm drain 5 houses away, and of course the storm drain was overflowing. Thank you for your consideration. Kelly Ruggles. I understand there's a meeting this evening on more housing development. I will try to be there, but not sure. I feel that Stratford is losing to this developers. We are a family community that cares. These developers do not care about the little people. We need to stop this and control our neighborhoods. The flooding that has resulted and continues to do so from the Big Y project is insane. No one cares that we are left with the damage. Not to mention the damage on our wetlands. More cars and pollution harms the environment, with garbage, salts from winter, oils, etc. are harmful to the environment and the animals. I understand traffic and overcrowding our schools. Why don't they build a new school? This will be another meeting. Enough is enough with the continued planning. It's too much. Our town council are voted in by the people in this town. Now do something to help our people that work hard to have a home here. Then developers do what they want to do to get it done, and that's our problem when they sell and move on for all of the money. I oppose further housing development in the town of Stratford. Stop sweeping it under the mat and do something. Laws protect builders where there are laws protect builders. Where are the laws to protect the residents? That is your job, council. Stop saying your hands are tied. I oppose this completely. Laura Dancho, I think you wanted to read yours, right? Okay. Okay, I'll skip yours. Mark Allais, did you want to read yours?
No, I'm going to read mine.
You're going to read yours too? Okay. Mary Ellen Clifton. Regarding the proposal of the development of additional homes off Broadbridge Avenue, I would be cautious of any disruption to the existing wetlands. The far end on my property near the intersection of Canaan Drive and Green Valley Road sees worsening drainage issues over the years since the construction of the Perry Green homes. I continue to question whether the sanitary sewer pipe and storm drainage sewer pipelines installed as per an easement by the previous owner of my property are functioning as they should be. My property has been damaged by erosion and mudslides. One mudslide even went into the street on Cannon Drive. Water issues with each rain and storm event are now becoming increasingly frequent and have only exacerbated the overall drainage problem. Michael Camperlingo. I would like to voice my support for the 19-home subdivision that is coming up for consideration. I believe as long as the process is followed within the guidelines set forth by the town of Stratford, that there is no reason why a sensible development such as this can't go forward. Whomever is the landowner and developer has to follow a clear process that is set forth by many different documents and rules. I live in a similar subdivision within town. Thank you. Nora Christensen. I'm writing to object to the building of Teakwood Estates, a 19-lot subdivision proposed for the wooded area adjoining Remington Woods. Our natural places are being decimated. Our wetland animals, plants, and birds are being exterminated. The woods whose trees provide us with oxygen are being ripped down, and flooding is the result of construction in or near wetlands. All this destruction of nature that the building of Teakwood Estates would bring would greatly harm not just the creature inhabitants, but the human. Please leave us, the people, the land that Teakwood Estates developers would like to extinguish for their own profit. Pia Moose. I'm writing to you to express my concern in opposition to the planned development of the Remington Woods. I am especially concerned that building near the wetlands will exacerbate flooding and harm the wetlands, our water quality, and our water table. I have no confidence in the developer's proposal to keep the wetlands from damage. I'm particularly worried about flooding and the impact on the community. The forest is described as the only forest in the local area, earning it the title Fairfield's Last Lung. Home to a thriving ecosystem and wealth of outdoor respites for local families and residents, Remington Woods has endless potential as a community green space and needs preservation. Thomas Yem. As the Commission has before a proposal to approve development in a known wetlands known as Teakwood within the town of Stratford, I wish to make the following points and urge denial of the application for a permit. 1. I draw the Commission's attention to the provisions of the Stratford Town Code, Section 217-6A, specifically Item 3, which charges the Commission with the responsibility to balance short-term uses of the environment and the maintenance and enhancement of long-term productivity. An owner or developer of this wetlands property may indeed anticipate short-term gain from the degradation of the wetlands in question. However, the entirety of Stratford loses some of its long-term productivity, and the residents of the town surely have as much of a stake in this as the owner of the wetlands property. Therefore, the Commission needs to make its decision in light of the fact that the protection of wetlands and watercourses are of a benefit to every resident and specifically to everyone living downstream of this proposed development. 2. The mandate of the Commission is not parochial. The matter under consideration is not of concern only to those whose properties include or abut the wetlands portion. Consider the Harbor and Waterfront Commission is charged with protecting the coastline for all residents. Likewise, the Roosevelt Forest Commission and numerous other town commissions are responsible for protecting Stratford's patrimony. Along with members of the Commission and perhaps very few other residents, I have myself toured this property under the expert guidance of the town's conservation administrator some months ago. The experience was unforgettable, and my sense of the environmental density and fragility of this parcel is one that I wish all of Stratford would share, if only they knew. It is up to the Commission, however, in the words of Section 217-4A, to protect the wetlands and watercourses within its territorial limits. 4. Climate change is something with which all Stratford contends on a regular basis. In particular, periodic flooding of streets and residential lots cause much hardship in both private and public expense. Preserving wetlands is one of the few options available to the town that is proactive of combating the accumulating dangers from climate change. In light of the above points and more that could be added, I respectfully urge the Commission to once again step up and discharge its responsibility to all of Stratford by denying this permit. And that's all I have for written in comments.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, I'm going to open up for public comments. So before we do that, I want to ask, anyone want to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Anyone in favor? Anyone in opposition? I'm going to go by the list we have. Tyler Bunch. Just state, everyone state your name and address for the record, and we're going to keep the comments at 3 minutes.
Good evening, Tyler Bunch, 1661 Elm Street. Been here for a couple of these proposals. I've noticed the changes. Some of them are pretty interesting. It's almost like the developers and the wetlands are in the back seat of this strong body driving down the street, and there's an invisible line between the two of them, and the developers reaching over the invisible line saying, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you." It is impossible for humans to live this close to a natural area like this and not have some sort of impact. Light pollution, sound pollution, the runoff we were talking about before. The old proposal had 2.7 acres of impermeable structure, lots, driveways, whatever they were. This one, they say, is only 2.2. That's, for you Taylor Swift fans, that's 2 football fields worth of land that will not have water permeating it anymore. And instead of that natural soup that's going to happen with those major storms, of all this fun nutrient stuff overflowing and going down into the wetlands, because there's a large storm and lots of flow, now we've said you don't get that nice soup, you're just going to get nice clean water. That's it. No more nutrients for you. You're going to get 2.2 acres of H2O, period. Well, great. It's going to sustain the wetlands as a definable source in terms of, I guess, basic geography, but the creatures that live there, it's one of the things that wasn't mentioned here by the scientists tonight at all. We talked about the flora a lot. We didn't talk about the fauna at all. I'm sure this will be a lovely place to live. It's already a lovely place to live for lots of creatures. Who knows? They're going to be foraging tonight and in the morning. There's things hibernating under the snow right now. There's larval stages of various and sundry things that will die because of this development, that will have their life processes impacted because of this development. Okay, they're skirting alongside the rules, but come on. It's impossible that this development will not impact the environment around it. By the way, it's about 30 linear feet from where I'm standing to that wall, which is about as much as a slug will travel in their entire lifetime. So let's just get rid of them, right? Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, Yasmin Kelly, 1505 Elm Street. With regard to the protection from flooding offered by wetlands, weather systems are ever evolving, irreparably dangerous flooding, I guarantee, and merely building a measured distance away from wetlands isn't enough of a safeguard anymore. It would be short-sighted to proceed with business as usual without weighted consideration for rapidly encroaching weather changes. I would love to see developers shift focus to repurposing existing structures or rebuild on land with an existing structure footprint, especially in a town like Stratford, which is rich in storied architecture, many buildings of which sit empty. There is so much potential for restoration. I want to continue living in this town and be able to boast of its ability to operate with perceptive, responsible, and visionary foresight. I would additionally like to note it is extremely rude and members of this development team left the room specifically during the community input portion of this meeting. This, more than anything else shared tonight, is demonstrative of a disregard for collaboration with the community for this project.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Paula Sweely?
Oops. Just a second. Okay, sorry. Good evening, Wetlands Commissioners. Tonight you have the difficult and crucial task of protecting our vitally important wetland, which can be compromised by the proposed teakwood development. Stratford's diminishing wooded areas and wetlands are of grave concern to our residents, not only for their beauty and health benefits, but equally or even more importantly, for their unique function to protect against flooding. This valuable function is the result of the unique natural characteristics of wetlands to protect and improve water quality, provide fish and wildlife habitats, store floodwaters, and maintain surface water flow during periods of drought. Wetlands provide a wealth of societal and climatic benefits. Balanced conservation strategies are needed to ensure their protection in the 21st century and beyond. Beyond that, the monetary value of ecosystem services provided by wetlands globally is estimated to be some $47 trillion per year. Connecticut legislatures, Connecticut Legislature Senator Kelly recently announced a federal grant which included more than $200,000 that will help extend a living shoreline in Stratford. It's encouraging to see that the value of wetland is now being recognized and tax money is being spent to enhance our wetland area at Stratford Point. We need to reinforce that effort by protecting all of Stratford's wetlands. The importance of protecting all of Stratford's remaining wetlands and green spaces cannot be overemphasized. What good can come of development that compromises existing wetlands and consequently increases the flooding problem that already exists around many areas in Stratford? Stratford is suffering and will continue to suffer from the poisoning effects of Raymark's toxic waste disposal in numerous areas around our town. Raymark benefited from that cheap and easy way to dispose of their toxic waste. For many years that this occurred, enlightenment about the devastating effects of such practices was not
Ms.
common
Wheeler, your
knowledge.
time is up. Thank you. 3
Oh.
minutes there. You had 5.
Could I just do, okay.
Yep, we have a lot of people that want to speak.
I just urge the commission to refuse this proposal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we got it. Marcia Lee?
Hello, Marka Lee, 1661, it's okay, 1661 Elm Street. I agree with Yasmin that the developers were indeed rude by leaving the room, and it drives home just how much they actually care about the residents here in Stratford. Especially after hearing the presentation tonight, there definitely should not be any development on this land, and it is land, not lots, to which they kept referring. Just hearing that something risky has been done in town before is not a reason to do it again. I heard the developer mention the term regulated areas. Well, there's no line that someone can draw within this natural area that can ensure the complete safety of these wetlands, because they will be negatively impacted. They just said that a portion of the wetlands, I believe near Ronald Road, will actually be disturbed. They know that, and that's not acceptable. I appreciate that this wasn't easy to do, because you shouldn't be doing it. Reduced runoff is still runoff. Pesticides, fertilizers, cleaning solutions, all running off the paved surfaces you just described, collecting into the wetlands, never mind the 100-year storm. They're going into this infiltration system that's going to filter out everything, all the nutrients like my husband just mentioned. Nature provided a great system. Let's leave it alone. The soil cleans and absorbs rainfall, which we have been experiencing quite a lot of in Stratford just last month. Down on Shore Road, there were swans just swimming down Shore Road, and that was not a 100-year storm. That was just rain. I can imagine what it was like in the Teakwood area. Aside from being a natural purifier of our water and wetlands, wetlands provide a buffer to flooding, especially during these storms. Not only will structures here aggravate and exacerbate flooding in this area, the water flow and quality would definitely be compromised by the runoff from this construction and from everyday human activity and the homes themselves. Flooding causes health issues like bacteria and mold, and safety and financial issues. Residents in the area are already experiencing flooding, and building will only make it worse. I was privy to a meeting in another town not so far from here where residents actually had to come to the town for compensation for losses due to flooding. I'm talking about fences and stuff running down the street. You can't just replace existing native trees with evergreen trees if that's not what naturally grew there. If you cut down the trees in that area, even if not in the wetlands directly, they do expose the wetlands and put them in danger. The roots of those trees hold the soil together, and they would no longer be there to prevent mud flows, as another person mentioned. Street trees would not be enough help, and this would be disastrous to an ecologically sensitive area and a nightmare to the residents that live around it. I say that there's a percentage of land protected as open space that they mentioned. Well, how long before another developer comes along and chips away at that too? The point is that we have developed the natural land of this coastal city to capacity, if not past it. And somebody else mentioned the animals, so I'm going to skip over that. This is a no-brainer. I urge the developers, sell this land to the town or to a land trust where it can be preserved as a natural flood barrier and to the water filter that it already is. Deny this irresponsible development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, Thomas Yates.
Good evening, Thomas Yates, 30 Avery Street. I'm going by the drawings on your website. On drawing number 20, it lists a roadway straight in and with 4 homes on it, and it lists lots 18 twice, lot 20 and 21. On drawing number 21, it lists 3 homes, lots 19, 18, and 20 with 3 driveways. On drawing 23, it lists 3 homes with 2 driveways off Broadbridge Avenue, but doesn't show any access to home number 20 in the back. Now, from the drainage drawing, it shows a drain line going from behind building 20, lot 20, into a catch basin on Broadbridge Avenue. It doesn't show the size of that drain pipe, and that catch basin flows down into the road by Deerfield Condos, goes across into the creek that goes into Bridgeport, which is the town line by Deerfield parking lot. And also, I heard the gentleman say that it's up to the homeowners to maintain the drainage systems that they're going to put in by the houses. I think at Teakwood and Ronald Drive, they're going to put in these 2 large, like sand grit separators. I've put them in parking lots and other building sites around Connecticut. They have to be maintained every 2 years, pump out with the grit and stuff in there. And who's going to do that? It's going to be on private property. Who's the homeowner going to pay for that? That's what I want to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Teresa Jackson.
Good evening. Teresa Jackson. I reside at 15 Glen Drive, and I adamantly oppose the construction of a 19-lot home subdivision entitled Teakwood Estates. This would definitely destroy the natural habitats of the many species of animals that reside there, and with this intended project, they will diminish drastically. The construction will have a definite impact on the groundwater and surrounding area. If filling is required, the water has to go somewhere, and for those of us currently with dry basements, well, that will certainly change. It is a severe disruption to the wetlands, which will have a significant impact on the ecosystem. These woods have been peaceful and untouched for my 58 years, and they hold a diverse and robust ecosystem. The damaging effect of construction, first and foremost, is the direct habitat loss to the many species that I am going to list. The birds, deer, turkeys, chipmunks, foxes, snakes, frogs, woodchucks, rabbits, mallard ducks, possums, skunks, coyotes, and even monarch butterflies. And I'm sure I'm leaving many more out. As of July 2022, the monarch butterflies are on the endangered species list due to deforestation and pesticides. And that will have an impact, and I hope that they won't be on the extinction list. So lastly, this will have a direct impact on the quality of life for those of us who live in this neighborhood and intentionally chose this quiet, serene, dead-end street area. I would also like to just mention, too, that this open green space is becoming scarce, and soon in this town of Stratford, it will be non-existent. We need to keep this open green space and not displace and destroy the wildlife. Where will they end up, and why don't we care about that? So I vehemently oppose this development. I implore this commission to consider my plea for the ecosystem and the wildlife that exists there, as well as the residents like myself who have chosen to reside and raise our families here and now feel as though we are being pushed out as well. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, Lisa Zawadsky.
Thank you. Lisa Zawadsky, 44 Elliott Street. I oppose this proposal. We need to protect our wetlands in Stratford and beyond. Building as close to the edge as possible is causing irreversible damage to our planet. The area for this proposed development must be protected. Wetlands purify water, help to protect against flooding, and host a wide variety of wildlife that will forever be displaced. Stratford has very few green spaces left, as many people have said tonight. Years from now, there may be financial or legal penalties for the developer or the poor homeowners who purchase these homes when their systems fail, but the environment is forever ruined. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Gresco? He had to leave. Okay. Next. Peter Bowe?
Peter Bowe, 1705 Elm Street. I have something that I'd like to submit to you guys. I said to Joe, at least I would know I was speaking next after he spoke, so it caught me off guard. There's an introduction letter. The state would rate this as open space. The housing would make it medium density housing. You can read the rest of that last little bit there. I have grave concerns. On the back page of that, the gentleman mentioned earlier, this is the water course. We're looking at one site. This impacts a 3-mile area from where Teakwood Estates would be to Long Island Sound. I was astounded at the topography. You notice at the very top there, going toward Route 8, it hooks a left turn. That's where Deerwood Field condominiums are. That may not have looked that way 30 or 40 years ago, but Deerwood condominiums may have impacted it. That shows as it goes down, and if you go to the next page, I highlighted the housing density. The lot size said that it was, I think, required 10,000 square feet, and some of them would have 13,000. Well, if I step back here, this area where the seats are to the back is that additional 3,000 square feet. It's not a really big addition. Right now, there are approximately 15 homes that border this subdivision, already existing. 19 homes would more than double the housing there. If you step across the power lines to Bridgeport, there are approximately 20 homes that border next to this area. And then if you go, there's another watercourse map that shows where it goes into Remington Woods and then Success Lake. The topography, there's a drop-off from the end of Teakwood Drive to Success Lake of 142 feet. At the end of Teakwood Drive, it's 158 feet above sea level. Going toward the power lines, it quickly drops to 123. You get to Broadbridge Avenue, it's 111 feet above sea level. You get just across the street, it drops, I was shocked, it drops to 29 feet above sea level. You get to the middle of Success Lake, and it's only 16 feet above sea level. This is from the topography map. I'm concerned also, as some people mentioned, about the potential runoff, which would include herbicides, pesticides, residual oil from vehicles or road salts. The tree coverage was mentioned. Someone mentioned earlier that perhaps 40% of the trees would be removed.
Mr. Bowe, thank you. We have your literature, but we have to move on. You have 4 minutes.
May I point one thing out that's critical?
Quickly.
3 minutes.
You had 5 minutes, but quickly, go ahead.
Okay. Going down toward the Sound, okay, This entire watercourse was heavily industrialized with Remington Arms and then also Remington Arms again. Those sites have been remediated. Remington Woods is on the list to be remediated. This area should not add to those problems simply because it exists, and I hope you disapprove it.
Okay. Katie Bowe.
Hello. So, I was told today you guys want to hear sciencey stuff to help you make up your minds. I'm not a very sciencey person. However, I will say this. What little I know about it, there's a book that we read to our kids when they were little. It was written in 1946. It's called Paddle to the Sea by Holling Clancy Holling. Maybe you know about it. Basically what it is, the little canoe goes through the river and it ends up in the sea. Pretty obvious even to somebody like me. What goes down into the water is going to go out to Long Island Sound. The next thing that I would like to say, what type of science that I like is linguistics. That's a science. I was interested in listening to some words during this thing. There was another book written in 1949 by somebody named George Orwell. It was called 1984. There's an interesting word in that book. It's called doublethink. It's a term that refers to the mental ability of believing two contradictory ideas at the same time for the purpose of rendering critical thinking impossible. It strikes me that what's going on here tonight is trying to achieve that. I am so lulled by what's going on that it's a little hard to think. Maybe you catch my drift. The other word that came into my mind was what they are, developers. They are developing something. They're interested in development. So I decided to look that word up. The verb form means to grow or change to a more advanced or stronger form. Synonyms include advance, evolve, flourish. I don't think that we've been so critically limited in our thinking to not understand that evolving is not so good, but maybe something that will impact our children for the better, like a park or a clean place or clean water. The noun form includes social, collective, progress, also personal progress. I don't see how this development has anything to do with a collective idea of progress for this town. It's for somebody to progress and develop a large sum of money for themselves, but nothing to do with most of us, and certainly not the children and their future. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowe. Next, Greg Dancho.
Good evening, Commissioners. Greg Dancho, 30 Ruby Lane. I'm going to basically say what a lot of people have already said already, so I apologize for that. And I'm actually happy because of all the people are talking about basically the same thing and why this is important to talk about the environment. I am against the Teakwood Estates development. Niches, habitats, and ecosystems are words I use on a regular basis in my job. These are fragile areas that are shrinking at a very rapid rate, and that is a major cause for increasing numbers of species of plants, insects, birds, reptiles, and mammals to become endangered. And again, heard this before. Stratford's niches, habitats, and ecosystems are under constant and tremendous pressure for development. Many already have been lost, and those that remain, few that remain, are being acquired to create more housing and create less habitats for our wildlife. This project has wetlands, vernal pools, which again would be very much impacted with this project. Many trees, rock outcroppings, and all that create niches, habitats, and ecosystems for wildlife that will be impacted. In addition, this property is used by wildlife as a safe corridor. Again, we talked about this moves down into the Remington Woods, so these animals are moving down through this area. Fragmenting these corridors adversely impact wildlife and cause increased human and animal conflicts. Neighbors tell of bobcat, fox, turkey, migrating birds, insects, again, we've heard this before, that are seen there and make up a very vibrant natural area. Remove that area and those animals will be more apt to be in conflict with those people, and some of them may not appreciate that sharing, and that we do then see when we get that people getting together with animals. Some really love it, and some really don't. Loss of these areas becomes a permanent loss. It's not going to be coming back. Cases of failed water systems are not hard to find in Stratford. The water systems that never fail have failed. Wetlands are sponges that impedes flooding, and it's the best way to adversely impact wetlands is not to impact the area around them. Thank you very much for your time.
Representative Laura Dancho.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Laura Dancho. I live at 30 Ruby Lane. I am state representative and I'm a former council person for this area. And I'm here with regard to the new development that would exacerbate the existing water and flooding issues of the residents in this area. The project was most recently proposed in 2021 with various public hearings postponed for several months in 22, culminating with the original application being withdrawn in December of 22. The reasons for the delays and postponements is because you know and we know that this property is environmentally and ecologically fragile. The developer knows this too and believes that by simply reducing the number of new homes from 20 to 19 and adding stormwater containment areas, that these concerns are addressed. It's unfortunate that developers are not made better aware of construction complications prior to making such an investment. I want to stress again that not only is the Teakwood property an important wildlife corridor connecting to Remington Woods, of which obstruction will cause disruption of native wildlife, as pointed out by several here tonight, but understanding the impact of any reduction of canopy coverage and a change to the water table in this area is of utmost importance. The FEMA flood zone designation for current residents on Topaz, Southfield, and Broadbridge Avenue has not changed. Housing is important and single-family housing is desirable in my opinion. Stratford has many multi-housing complexes in the works as well as several single-family homes recently built off Broadbridge Avenue and now on Silver Lane. There are so few areas left for building in Stratford that we are now choosing to encroach upon our most environmentally sensitive and forested areas in the name of housing. Regardless of lot size, and the challenging topography, which is not flat, pointed out earlier, the vernal pools and underlying water flows are still affected. Any disturbance to the natural water flow on the Teakwood property will take immense engineering, of which no human control methods have worked in the past. This proposal will have a negative effect on current residents who live both above and below the proposed development. This is evidenced by documented erosion issues from residents on Emerald Place, from streets above, including Ocean View Terrace and Den Road. Erosion issues exist from an earlier Perry Lane development for residents living on Cannon Drive. This development created a culvert system that has since filled with debris over the years, rendering it ineffective. This is a scenario I feel will be repeated should this development proceed with an infiltration containment system that needs to be maintained by residents. Who monitors this? Is this a town responsibility? Who's going to go to these residents and tell them that they need to regularly clean out these culverts or whatever it is they need to do them? Residents on Broadbridge Avenue must be removed from their homes during storms as the flooding around their home requires that the utilities be turned off. They use sandbags against door frames regularly every time it rains and have already lost much of their personal belongings due to chronic flooding. I oppose the development of natural land space in District 10 that affects water tables, reduces the forest canopy, increases flooding, and is not only detrimental to the health and well-being of the surrounding wetland, but to our current tax-paying residents as well, and I respectfully request that this application be denied. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dancho. Our last speaker, Maria Rodriguez. No? Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public comment period for this meeting. And Attorney Russo, are you inclined to ask for an extension at this time of the public hearing?
Yeah, and then maybe at that point, Chair, at the next meeting, we would respond to all the comments from the
Yeah,
neighbors
there's
and obviously
5
discuss
pages
the-
of comments. I mean, and I invite the public back to the next public hearing next month. This is a continuation of this public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Riley is
We are going to reconvene the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission meeting. First order of business, approval of the minutes of the January meeting. Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we just heard the Teakwood Estates presentation, and there's a lot of information to absorb. I don't feel it's going to do us any good to discuss it again right now. We don't have enough information. So in that case, I'm going to move on to, we're going to table. I'm going to ask for a motion to table.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. You want to say anything about this? Mr. Russo, you want to say anything about mountain development?
Chair, Commissioners, so we're here on behalf of the applicant. We have Land Tech here who helped prepare the invasive species control plan and the mitigation control plan. We also have Manny Silva from Rose Tiso that worked on the engineering. And we're here, we can answer any questions. If you remember, this is a project that we came forward on an application last year, and it was denied. We subsequently appealed that to court. It's currently in court. And we then came up with revisions to the plan, enhancements to the plan in an effort to try to settle that litigation. So it's the same proposal, which you might remember is for a single building that would contain 129 apartments and in a small community building. In addition to that, so it's still for that proposal, but there was a number based on the comments that we received at that application, some of the concerns. We made some revisions to try to address that. I'm happy to go through that for you. I could talk about it at a high level about those revisions, or again, we have the folks here who can get into details about that. I know I had come before you to kind of detail that we were doing this last year, and we had some difficulty with our wetlands expert at the time in getting some of the information needed, particularly the invasive species control plan and the mitigation plan. We subsequently hired Land Tech. Land Tech prepared those plans, and we've submitted them in. And so that's why we're ready, I think, now to discuss this further. So, Chair, I mean, it's up to you. I'm happy to go high level and just talk about the changes, or we have them here. They can speak to it.
I'll just make a comment that I did provide some staff comments and questions, and I assume you're working on those?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, to respond to those, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm going to ask for a motion to table this to next month.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to table it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Attorney Russo.
Thank you.
Dennis. Okay. New business. 2023-12, residential condominium development at 600 Silver Lane.
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
hello, Attorney Bellis.
How are you? I haven't been here in a while. I miss you guys. I have a memorandum I can hand out, or you can just pass along. You don't have to read it. I'll go over it. I gave a copy to Kelly, and I gave a copy to Pat Sullivan. So while that's getting passed along, I'll just give you a little background information and tell you why we're here. Way back, I don't know, May of 22, June of 23, the town of Stratford entered a settlement agreement with a bunch of my clients' parties to settle all lawsuits. And as part of that settlement agreement, we were to make an application, Bluebird was to make an application on Silver Lane for up to 14 units. That settlement got recorded by a judge and it became a judgment. So having done that, we came before the Wetlands Commission, because you have to go to Wetlands Commission whenever you file a site plan. And at that, there's a statute called 8-3. And it says you're supposed to submit the application to the Wetlands Commission so they can determine if any activity in the upland review area is going to cause an adverse effect. We did that. This commission ruled that there was no adverse activity in the upland review area. And they should have, at that time, given a report. That's what the statute says, that you give a report to the zoning commission that there's no adverse impact. What this commission did was issued a permit. Well, you know, we weren't going to quibble about it. It's not actually correct. There's no regulated activity, so we shouldn't have gotten a permit. Kelly's squirming in her seat, but I'll get to that in a second. So a permit was issued, and I'm submitting that if you followed state statute, you should have just made a referral to the zoning commission. We went to the zoning commission. They didn't approve 14. They approved 10 units. Now, when we came to you, there was 11 units on our plan because that's what we thought we were going to get, but we didn't get 11. We got 10. So one of them got removed. They also, as part of the settlement agreement, said go to the Architectural Review Board. We did that. They made some changes to the church that was in front of the property. All of that was outside the upland review area. Planning and Zoning Commission approved the project. They had us put in a couple trees, again, outside the upland review area, and a sidewalk outside the upland review area. And zoning now approved the project. We went to get a building permit. The zoning commission said fine. They did a sign-off. All the other steps that were taken to get a building permit got a sign-off, and then we got a snag, I'll call it, at the wetlands level. And there was some back and forth about bonds. And just to be clear, I know each town's been doing it for a long time, but the statute says that it's the zoning commission that sets the soil and erosion bonds if they want. And it's the zoning commission that can set a bond for infrastructure if it's going to be turned over to the town. So it's really not a function of the Wetlands Commission. All right, again, we're overlooking that, no big deal. We came to an agreement, gave a bank check for $31,900 and posted the bond, and I believe it was given to Ms. Kerrigan. So there is a bond in place. So what happens? We don't get a sign-off on our for the building permit. Some back and forth about whether the plans that I submitted to the Wetlands Commission match what's given to the building department. Well, they're not going to match. And you know why they're not going to match? Because the zoning commission removed a house. So there's one less house than what I showed you people. They also said, we want you to make the Architectural Review Board changes, siding, whatever it may be, to the church. But that doesn't have anything to do with wetlands. They said, put in some trees over here, and make it more, more aesthetically pleasing. We did that. Again, that has nothing to do with wetlands. It's not in the upland review area. It's not in any regulated area. So we're expecting to get a building permit. Well, we didn't get a building permit. We got a cease and desist order. I called Attorney Kelly, and who represents the town, and I said, look, the whole purpose of this thing, of this big global settlement, was to avoid litigation. We don't want to go to court with each other. We don't want to go to war. We're going to cooperate and work with each other. He said, I understand that. I said, well, I just got a cease and desist order on Silver Lane. And he said, why don't you see if you can iron it out with them and come to an agreement, and please don't file a lawsuit. I said, okay. So that's why I'm here. As I said, we thought we were doing everything that we were supposed to do. Apparently, that's not the case. So the cease and desist letter that I'm objecting to was, at least the one I have, is dated perhaps February 5th, 2024. I'll just zip through it. I'm not going to bore you with everything. A full set of construction plans. They're uploaded nowadays on a portal. That's how you do the plans. So they've been given to the building department. They're on the portal. construction sequencing. Oh, I should talk about that. So no work has been done on this subdivision as far as clearing trees, putting in any road, or getting the site ready for the 10 new houses. That has not happened. What has happened is my client put a silt fence around the whole perimeter of the property, and then put a double silt fence along the area where the wetlands upland review area was, and then put double silt fence around where the topsoil was stored. And that, again, is outside the area of the upland review area. And there was some work being done on the church, remodeling work. One of the problems was a sewer line. They had to go in there and dig up a sewer line, la-di-da-di-da. But no work has been done on this subdivision. So right now, as we stand, the only work, there hasn't been, the project hasn't started. We don't have a building permit. Sediment and erosion controls installed. The silt fences were installed. Here's a point. So she says, or the letter says, I don't know, Kelly wrote it. Well, the silt fence around the perimeter hasn't been keyed in yet. What that means is dug in and placed. It has been put around the property, but no work's being done at this time. In the spring, it will be keyed in, obviously. They'll bring in after they cut the trees, they'll bring in a machine, dig a little trench, and bury the bottom of the silt fence. But nothing's being done now. And you wouldn't go do that in the middle of the winter without clearing the trees. It just doesn't make any sense to do it now. Is that a reasonable request? Absolutely. I agree with Kelly on that. Before that project starts, before there's any work done for installation of those 10 homes, it will be keyed in. I mean, that's the sum and substance of what I have. I have attached the wetlands little map showing you the wetlands off-site. It's on a neighbor's property, so there's no wetlands there. I talked about, if you look in 8.3G1, it says any site plan application involving land regulated as an inland wetland water course, the decision of the zoning commission shall not be rendered on the site plan application until you guys have submitted a report with its final decision to the zoning commission. And that wasn't done in this case, rather a permit was issued. Then later on it talks about who's responsible for bonds. The zoning commission may, as a condition, require a bond for sedimentation and erosion control and for any infrastructure. I think we're over that hurdle because we already gave you the bond. The problem, and I'll tell you, I understand where Kelly's coming from, and it's not a criticism of her personally at all. She is following your regulations, and your regulations, unfortunately, 2.26, violate state law in that you say that it's a regulated activity in the upland review area. That's what it says. So she's following the regulations, but that's not the law. I can't ask my client or anybody to violate state law. The state law is real clear, and if you don't know it, I'll explain it. You have jurisdiction over the upland review area. No question. We all agree to that. However, once this commission finds that there's no adverse activity, then it's not a regulated activity anymore. If you look at the wetlands statute, 22A-42, it says, and the regulations, your municipal regulations apply only to those activities which are likely to impact or affect the wetlands or watercourses. So once you've made that finding that it is not likely to affect the wetlands or watercourses, then it's not a regulated activity. So there's the trouble, and that's why Ms. Kerrigan is trying to do her job, but she's being frustrated because the regulation violates state law. Attorney Sullivan could say, well, Steve, why don't you go appeal it? Go go take this up to court. I will win in court. But the whole purpose of the global settlement was we had 10 cases, 10 at least, and we wanted to settle them. And the mayor signed off on this settlement agreement. And I've come to you many times, I don't know, for all these different clients as part of that settlement. I am not going to go take an appeal of one of your regulations when I don't have to. You know, that was the whole spirit of this, was to settle our differences, not to make fights. So I did not do that. And I don't think I have to. I don't want to do it. Let me be frank. We can solve this problem. I have no problem working with this commission. I always have. If you have an issue that you think is going to affect your wetlands, I will be more than welcome to deal with it. I agree with Kelly that once we get going on this project, that silt fence will be keyed in. And we will have a meeting with Kelly before we start construction as normal, just like normal procedures. We've given you the bond. So I don't think that the cease and desist should be in effect. Now, if you think I'm wrong and you rule against me, I'll have no choice but to go to court. And then what happens, you know how it is. It'll be a lawsuit for that, arguing over regulations. It'll be World War II again, and that's the whole purpose of the settlement, was to avoid that. So I'm coming to you saying, if you have a concern with this project as far as protecting your wetlands, I have no problem speaking with you. I have no problem, if it's reasonable, doing something reasonable that you may request. But there's no way, shape, or form that I should be getting a cease and desist order. What I should be getting is a referral to zoning that there was no adverse impact, and then a sign off to get a building permit. And then we follow the steps that we always follow in construction here in this town. We're not asking for any favors. We're not asking for anything that's not allowed by state law. So I'm objecting to the cease and desist. I was invited, I think I was invited, yeah. I think I was invited here, right, Kelly? Yeah, come here, yeah, discuss these with your commission at 7 o'clock. So that's why I'm here. If you have something you want to tell me, or you disagree with something that I've said, I'll do my best to try to answer your questions.
Kelly, you would like to say something?
Sure. Attorney Belz, have you been to the property recently?
No.
Well, if you would perform a site inspection, you would notice that there's been some excavation and soil movement activities.
Yes, maybe for the sewer, for that sewer repair. Yeah.
Yes. So, in fact, construction has begun, and the terms of the permit require that you meet all of these obligations as outlined in the cease and desist order, which have not yet been met. That includes submitting construction plans that are consistent with what was approved by this body here, and stating that another body requested some modifications to what was approved by this commission is not an excuse that your plans do not match and that you're just going to move forward with your construction. You need a permit modification. If you make modifications to your plans, you need a permit modification, which I conveyed to your entire team since December of 2023, and I'm not sure why I've had pushback on that, but that's why they were not approved. The construction sequencing plan, which is also required prior to any building permit sign-off and prior to construction starting on site, was also not approved, as it did not match what was approved by this commission. A pre-construction meeting was not held nor requested by your team, but construction has clearly begun on site. There's soil stockpiles everywhere, silt fence all over the place. There's excavation occurring throughout the property. And then I can go on and about sediment and erosion controls. So I just don't see I don't understand why you're unwilling to follow the terms of the permit.
Because the permit's not valid.
Why do you think that?
Because I've tried to make it perfectly clear that once this commission has found that there's no...
Where did the commission find no adverse impact?
It's in the decision that,
well,
right in the permit.
If you read the decision, there's no adverse impact to wetlands if you follow the terms and conditions of the permit, which you have not done.
No, once you find that there's no adverse impact, then you're supposed to send a letter to the zoning commission.
There was no referral from the zoning commission.
No, you never sent the letter.
The zoning commission did not refer this to the Inland Wetlands Commission. You, on your own, submitted an inland wetlands application to this body.
You have to do that, ma'am, because under 8-3, before you send a site plan application, you have to come to a wetlands commission. And they make a determination of whether there's any regulated activity. There's no regulated activity here.
There is regulated activity here.
Really?
Yes.
Where is the regulated activity?
There's an upland review area to
Right.
an inland wetland. Any activity, including excavation, et cetera, within that upland review area is considered a regulated activity.
Not according to 22A-42, which is our state statute.
But according to our town regulations, which have been in effect for many, many years. I'm sorry that you chose this avenue, but unfortunately you have an inland wetlands permit on this property.
Yeah, and it's valid, it was issued for a review of the upland review area, and there's been no changes that was done at zoning that had anything to do in that upland review area. So if you're asking us to come back to Wetlands Commission because the house is blue and not yellow, because that's what the Architectural Review Board want, that's not a valid
You're right,
reason.
I'm not asking you to come back for that. I'm asking you because you've made changes to your landscaping plan that was not approved by this commission, and you've added sidewalks.
Outside the upland review area.
But you have to understand, as you should be aware, that this commission reviews entire site plans. If you wanted us to review just what was going on in the upland review area, would this commission allow you to just put stormwater infrastructure randomly in the upland review area? No, we're looking at an entire site plan, and you're well aware of that.
No town ever in the state of Connecticut has us go back to a wetlands after you have an approval if the Planning and Zoning Commission deletes one house.
No, you deleted one house. The Planning and Zoning Commission requested that you did it, but your team did the deletion.
So that does not impact the wetlands. I think you're being unreasonable and obstructionist in this case.
Okay, you're fair.
And
That's your opinion.
you know, if that's the way the commission wants to rule, then we go to war. That's okay.
It's not a war. This is just the terms of your permit that were not followed.
No, they were followed. I disagree with what you think is not followed. You say we didn't give you the architectural plans that were submitted. They've been online.
I didn't say you didn't submit them. I said they were submitted. If you read it, I said they were submitted, but they're inconsistent with what was approved by this commission.
Yeah, they're not inconsistent with what was approved by the commission. There were
Okay.
changes made by zoning
By
that don't
your
affect
team.
the wetlands, and it's not in your jurisdictional review of the upland review area. It's not. If it were, I would agree with you.
Okay,
If
that's your
something was
opinion.
done, if something was done in the upland review area that was changed, I would 100% agree. But this is not in your jurisdiction. It's outside the upland review area. That's, I think, where the rub is.
That's your opinion.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Well, it looks as though we're at a stalemate here.
I don't think so. I don't think that there's anything that, I'm not sure you want me to come back to you and say, okay, there's a couple trees that were planted along the street. That's what you want me to do? If you tell me that's what you want me to do, let me know.
No, just help me understand, because we did approve it. We did.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no problem, it was
No
fine.
problems. No, we had no problems.
So more or less, the cat's out of the bag. You have to conform to the approval.
I did. We did.
She's saying, Kelly's saying you didn't. I mean,
She's saying that there were a house was removed, right? That's true. She's right. We showed you 11, now there's 10. Okay. It's not in the upland review area. And how's that going to impact the wetlands? It's less. There's less driveway, less house, less roof. Why do we have to come back for that?
I have a question. There's a lot of
Go ahead, Larry.
focus. There's a lot of focus on that, but I'd also call attention to the other things that Kelly points out to do with the installation, that the install and inspection prior to the beginning of construction of the silt fence.
Yeah.
So it was installed without notice and did not get approval following said installation. So what about some of these other points? So that's fine. You know, maybe those can be settled, but there are some points made here that it didn't adhere to what was agreed to adhere to.
Well,
Am I misreading it?
I think so, because we put up a silt fence.
Well, no, but that's not what she said. She said that it would be installed and inspected prior to the beginning of construction.
Well, maybe.
It was installed without notice and did not get approval following said installation. It was not yet inspected.
There hasn't been any construction on this subdivision yet. The only work that is being done is for the church, which is in the front. It's a remodeling of the church. No one has cut any trees, no one's put in any road, no one's done anything as far as the construction of the 10 houses. I 100% agree that we will come to Kelly, have a meeting like we always do, key the silt fence in at that time, and then if everyone's on board, we start our construction.
But you agree you haven't been to the property, so you don't know whether construction has begun.
Well, what you call construction and what I call construction are probably two different things. There's no
Okay.
construction, there's no construction on the 10 houses, there's no construction on the clearing of the trees. There's a remodeling of an existing building that's there.
I don't think we delineate it that way, though, do we? I don't think it's that.
No, this whole site plan was approved as one entire development, and you have begun redevelopment of the site in earnest. That's it.
Yeah, according to you.
Okay.
Is there a machine on the job?
There are machines on the job, there's soil piles all over the place, there's excavations all over the place. I implore you to visit the site that you're representing.
Yeah.
You should have before you came here.
I know what the law is, and I have no problem if you want to work with us. I don't know if you're saying come back because of the 3 trees, come back to meet you for what, I don't know. The plans have been submitted. I don't think I need a modification of my permit. If you think you want to hear me present a whole new application again after we have a judge's order, I'm not quite sure what that's going to accomplish, but I'll be glad to do it.
In the interest of the global settlement that we did make,
Yeah.
I would hope that we could come to some kind of an agreement.
That's what I would like to
Or
do.
without having to go to court.
That's why I'm here.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But Kelly has valid points. There's 6 points that have not been followed. They don't seem that hard to do.
Well, it is. Like, pick the first one. How am I going to do it? I have submitted the plans that Planning and Zoning approved. She doesn't like those plans. What do you want me to do now? I
It's
can't
not a
get
matter
past
of me
point
not
one.
liking them. They're not, they don't match what this commission
We know
approved.
they don't match. We know
Because we
that.
can compare with our eyes one plan to another, and they do not match.
Right. One said 11 houses, the other one says 10. So now tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Get a permit modification.
So you want me to come back here is what you're saying?
Yes, you
Is
have
that what the
modified the terms of the permit, so you need to get a modification approved by this body.
A modification that has nothing to do with the upland review area. I can do that if that's what you want me
That
to do.
might be the most prudent course at this point,
Is that
Attorney
the
Bellis.
easiest? You're going to look at me and go, what are you doing here, Steve?
Yeah. Excuse me, Attorney Sullivan, could you comment on this?
Yeah, I think what Kelly is saying is that the plans that were approved are now different.
They are.
And so you need to come back with those different plans and see what the commission thinks about those. Now, it sounds like from what you're saying is that the changes are not going to impact the
Correct.
inland wetlands.
They will not.
And so that seems like a pretty easy thing to do, is to come back and say, my plans have changed, these are the new plans that I want approved, and if the differences are so slight, then maybe we don't, need to.
Can they be done administratively with Kelly, or no, you need the whole commission? I don't care, whatever way is easier for you guys.
Attorney Bellis, I think we do need to see them.
Okay.
I would really appreciate if you could come back with those and get a modification, and we could put this to bed.
I have them with me. I can give them to you now. They're very minor. If you'd like, if you would like me to come back, whatever you choose. I have them with me. The changes, Kelly knows what they are. I know what they are. We know what they are. Pat Sullivan knows what they are.
I haven't seen the change plans.
Okay.
So, I think you need to submit them, and people have to have the opportunity to review them and look at them and make a decision. I don't think you could just sort of throw them up now,
But
not
we
have
have
copies for anybody.
What throws me off is we have a stipulated judgment and an approval from zoning, and what if you say, oh, I don't like these changes?
you're talking apples and oranges. If you were coming in here and saying, I have 3 new units,
No, I don't. Yeah, I do.
but they're not in the, I'm talking about an analogy here.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were coming in and you were saying, I have 3 new units, the zoning has approved, but they're not in the inland wetlands, so you should just be fine with that. Okay, so just because you've removed a unit, this body gets to decide whether that's okay from inland wetlands. It's sort of like when, you have a roadway and and inland wetlands says we want it to be gravel. And then we want it to be 30 feet wide. And then you get to zoning, and zoning says, well, with the fire trucks to get in, we want it to be 40 feet wide and we want it to be asphalt. Well, that's a disagreement between the commissions, and you got to work that out.
I don't mind working it out with you guys. I really don't, because I don't think there's anything to argue about, really, at the end of the day.
Then just bring them in and let them make a decision.
Then I'll do that. I'll bring them in, and we can have, I don't want the things dragged out, maybe at your next meeting, if that's okay with you guys.
I would ask for a motion to table this to our March meeting. Mr. Bellis could bring us the revised plans and answer any questions Kelly had, and then maybe we could get this over with.
That would be perfect.
Thank you, Attorney Bellis.
Okay.
I ask for a motion. Motion by Joe.
Motion.
Second by
Second.
John.
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Attorney Bellis.
I'll see you next month. Okay.
Okay. 2017-4, construction of a restaurant and associated parking lot. Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Ms. Kerrigan, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. My name is James Fitzpatrick. I live at 170 Morning Dew Lane in Stratford, and I am here to discuss the changes that were taking place and completed in the patio area of the restaurant I'm building on Hawley Lane. And I like to think that I'm a pretty good builder, and I build nice buildings, and whether they're residential or commercial. So I wanted this to be as nice as the ones that I normally build. And we had approval for this patio, and when we were out looking at the patio area, we were concerned about the cars, going by, and so I decided, okay, we're going to put some trees up. Then I got an approval for a fence. We put the fence up, and the trees that we put up are green giants that are going to grow up tall. We're going to shape them into probably an 8 to 10 foot hedge, and it'll be really thick, and the fence will cut down the road noise and the headlights, from the vehicles traveling by. And then just looked at the property and basically said that, we'd like to, I think it needs to be improved. It's a side yard, and front side yard on parallel with Hawley Lane. And I think, I'd like to make it better than it is for the patrons that are going to be coming to the restaurant. So it was decided that we would dig down a little bit, create 2 levels. So you walk out of the rear door, you get onto the first level, then walk over 2 stairs in between 2 trees that we planted. We actually planted 3 trees on the main patio, and then down into the lower patio area. Put some stone walls dividing, as you can see, and we created a fire pit area, and we planted all sorts of shrubbery, such as rose bushes and hydrangeas, seagrass, and some red maple twig trees, dogwoods, and the 3 trees that are the white dogwoods that are up on the main parking lot, patio area for to create a shaded area. So along the backside, we put a wall in, and the red twigs are on the backside, on the east side of the property, and that will grow into a smaller hedge, very, very dense. It's just a dividing line to keep anybody out of the potential area for going into the wetlands. So all the area that was disturbed was lawn area, existing lawn area, and I mean that's pretty much it. We did it because it's we felt it would be an extra added benefit to the diner, coming out, having a brunch or something, dinner outside, take advantage of the sun, the breeze, the nice night, whatever. Just felt it was nice and comfortable. It's going to be a family restaurant, and we're just going to try to make it as nice as possible. And that's why I did the encroachment on over and above what it was approved for.
Commissioners have any questions?
Yes. Mr. Fitzpatrick, so you just so I got it right. So you already had approval for the patio?
Yes.
Okay, so you just made some enhancements.
Correct.
Way of landscaping, steps, a fire pit.
Right. And the interior walls going towards the Hawley Lane. We're going to have, we have planned seating on cushions out there, so, and some tables, and just people to, congregate and enjoy the time.
Sure.
The restaurant.
My other question is a modification permit normally in order for such enhancements?
Yes, any modification to the approved site plans does require that the permit itself be modified.
I see.
So, Mr. Fitzpatrick, are you asking for modification tonight?
Yes. I mean, I guess I am, because I did modify the approval, so yes, I am.
It looks very nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the modification.
I just have one question for Mr.
Go ahead, John.
Fitzpatrick. The fencing that you put up is just to help privacy and cut down the noise, or what was the?
Yeah, it's on the inside of the trees, yes.
Yeah.
Just for the noise.
I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about maybe just lining it with some nice arborvitaes, but.
They're in the front of it.
Okay.
I have tall green giants in the front on Hawley Lane, then the trees are, the fence is behind that.
Okay.
It's only a
Yeah.
4-foot-high fence.
Mhm.
And then you have a 2-step grade down, so.
Yes, Joe.
Yes, sir. I don't know what a green giant tree is.
It's an arborvitae tree.
I see.
And a green giant is one that the deers don't eat.
Okay, so ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, next is staff report.
All right, so I left my comments regarding potential regulation reviews to public hearing in here because we haven't made any major decisions there, but in light of what time it is, perhaps we can push that off to our next meeting. Unless you guys want to discuss it during the commissioners' forum. But otherwise, as far as enforcement actions or administrative permits, aside from those that we've already discussed tonight, I have 2 permits and another violation. The 2 permits are 2024-2A, which is a garage addition and a driveway at 200 Judith Terrace. And then, oh, sorry, I misspoke. I had just one application, then I had the 2 violations, and one was for 600 Silver Lane, and the other is for a potential violation at 160 Disbro, which it's still unclear if a violation exists, but we're working with the property owner to determine that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kelly. No administrative. Commissioners Forum. Anybody want to say anything?
I have a question about that last thing. I wasn't quite able to jump in, but he had a line about a turtle found its way to the property. Did we?
Oh, that's a big.
Was
that's
that a joke?
Big ceramic turtle there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it a box turtle?
No,
Oh.
it was
That was the
somewhat
big,
of a joke.
that was the big turtle that's on the property that's showing.
He was the developer for the Big Y property, and there was a big contentious fight about a turtle, so he had a turtle statue, and now the turtle statue's moved. Yep.
Turtle statue. Yeah, no, and he had a pond around it with a big, yeah.
Regulation review, I think Pat gave us something.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if we could just back up one, I have
Yeah.
a question on, regarding this one here. What would suspending or revoking a permit do? In other words, what would let's say if we voted to suspend or revoke the permit, what would that require upon Mr. Fitzpatrick, just theoretically?
So he would not have an active permit on the site, so he would technically be in violation of the regulations because he has regulated activities actively occurring on the property.
So he would then have to remove the wall?
He would likely come back before the commission would likely allow him to come back before the commission to go through a new permitting process. But,
I see. I see.
mhm.
Okay, regulations.
So I think what Kelly was saying is we'll save it for next month, but I did do some research and some investigation. I know one of the real concerns was about the limit for fines. And I know that we talked last month about whether or not somebody could be fined for not showing up. I haven't found any support for that, but basically it is what you put in your regulations. And what you have in your regulations now is $1,000 for a violation. But if you read both the regulation and the state statute more carefully, a continuing violation can be an individual violation day by day. So if you have a $1,000 penalty in there, but you have someone who continues violating, so you ask them to make a correction and then they just continue to violate, then it's not just $1,000 total, it's $1,000 for every day. So, that's a little bit of a game changer in terms of what you thought your opportunities were for fines. So we can certainly investigate it more, and I can give you some.
So this could be a revenue opportunity?
Well, in some towns it is, so.
Well, sometimes it's hard to collect, though, Dr. Chess. And if the fines aren't paid, of course, the town will place a lien on the property and be dragged out in court for many years, but that's what happens.
And there are provisions in the wetland statutes that if you do have to take somebody to court, then you can also get your attorney's fees. So that's unusual in Connecticut to be able to get your attorney's fees, but this is one of those situations where you can. So.
In particular, what we were looking at this last time was about, again, the offense when you get stiff, when no one shows up, or they give you notice, within a certain period, or don't give you notice within a certain period of time. And so I did do my homework this time, and did review it, and was wondering, and I know it's late, so I'm fine with putting this off. But again, we should be able to put into new rules that that this committee has the authority to impose a penalty if someone does not show up, or again, it would be you could craft it in a number of different ways. But number one, not showing up and not telling us you're not showing up, certainly that, we could levy a fine. And
So I thought maybe one of the ways we could do it, and I'm still sort of investigating, but it maybe could be an additional fee, so that if you have a fee for the application, but you don't show up or repeatedly don't show up or don't show up without an excuse or don't show up, without notice, that there could be a fee associated with that. So sometimes you see in wetland situations or in application situations that the fee for an application will be doubled if it's an application where you've already done work. So I'm thinking that might be a way to make it possible, because it's not really a penalty or a fine so much as it is, an inconvenience for the, so that's the kind of thing I was thinking of, is whether or not we can't put in our fee schedule, it's X for this kind of application, Y for over-the-counter, whatever, and then, additional fee for failure to appear as scheduled without, we can craft whatever language we think is appropriate, or, and we could also have it be something that would be ordered by the commission in each circumstance. I mean, we can figure out how you would want to do that, sort of there might be a provision for a waiver.
I don't care if it's a penalty or a fee. It's cash.
We could construct it similarly, so they didn't come to the January public hearing, but the public hearing still occurred in a sense, and we do have a fee of $500 per night for the public hearing, so they'll have racked up 500 times 3 at this point, and that fee has to be paid before they get their decision, one way or another. So it could be structured somewhat similarly, where there's an excess fee and you need to pay before you get your decision either way.
To be perfectly honest, David, they usually show up. This is very rare that someone doesn't show.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where we're at. Well, unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but he didn't show.
But even for the public and getting notices out to public and then them showing up, I think we should build something in where there's that they've got to give 5 days notice. Now, if you don't show up at all, but you still at least have that 5 days notice to get the word out to the community that we're not going forward.
I think I wish that could happen. The only thing is, a lot of things happen that very day.
Yep.
And I know that
But
it got to be a case by case.
But again, if you build in that it's at our discretion.
There should be
then you've
something
got it,
built in, yes.
But at least we have that there, and if they see it as a potential fee, that at least lets them know up front they're going to pay for this.
Right, so then there's notice that it's a possibility, and there's also,
Right.
maybe we can consider it, that it would be put in effect unless the commission waived it. And so somebody
Right.
could come in and say, here's why I couldn't do it, and would you waive the fee, and then the commission could do it.
Are we going to be in a position where we're evaluating people's excuses, though, right? I feel like it's a slippery slope, right? Somebody had a car accident on the way here, or somebody, and you kind of hinted that, Kelly, what if we on our side have a last minute, I mean, I showed up at 7:30 last time. I had trouble getting here. And if I was the one person forming the quorum, we would not have had quorum, hypothetically. As much as I'd like to do it, I think it's all hypothetical. I think in theory, it sounds like a good idea. We want to have some penalty.
I think we should have something for some blatant, egregious.
But how are we going to define blatant, though? How are we going to end up
Well,
defining that?
Even tonight, I mean, they had several people, so again, if they're bringing in 4 or 5 people, there should be somebody available to come and represent them.
Right.
That's the thing. I mean, again, I get what you're saying. I mean, I have a hard time
and-
getting here.
Again,
Okay?
and-
But
and I've been,
What rubbed the people the wrong way is he didn't even call to say he wasn't. He didn't even know that he was supposed to be here.
That's
last
where,
time.
that's what I would call egregious.
Yeah.
He did.
So I know your concern is that with that we can have our that day, there's an announcement that they can't be here. And we should have some footing to be able to say, well, you're going to pay for that, right? And then the public knows also that it's not a free fall, that you can't keep doing this. So I like the idea of having that fee schedule in with it.
That's a good idea.
Each meeting, this is, you know, this is the cost. And, you know, and you give 5 days notice. I mean, that's not unreasonable, I don't think.
I agree. I think if you can't appear, in most cases, you should still notify someone that you're not going to be there, so that we're not guessing if you're going to show up 5 minutes late or something. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. So if we do this in our regulations, does town council have to approve it? Or is this just us?
Good question.
I don't know.
I think that you are in charge of your regulations.
Okay.
As any commission would be, and that the statutes give you, and there's actually, for inland wetlands, there's model regulations, which most towns, including Stratford, have pretty much adopted. So, but it would be up to you what your regulations were. I don't think, I'd have to look at the charter to make sure that there's not some sort of special rule here, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think as long as it doesn't usurp the charter, where we could do basically what we want.
Or state statute.
Or, of course, state statute.
Can I make a statement? I understand where you're coming from to try to change some of the behavior to a positive manner for the applicants. But when an applicant proposes and pays a fee to come follow the process that we require him to follow, he is entitled to be a bad behaving applicant, right? If he doesn't behave well, that weighs on our rulings, I would, in mine anyways. Or he might choose to be one of our best behaving applicants, and again, that would kind of weigh in your thought process. Without sounding punitive, like we're going to punish you for making us come out here tonight and making the public, perhaps it's a better idea to increase the application fee and refund a small amount for applicants that meet all of their commitments. Because I think being in the business of correcting bad behavior as a wetlands commission is probably not the best interest of the commission. We're here to protect the wetlands and the environment and such, not dictate behavior of builders on how they apply to our processes. Thanks.
Yes.
Could you, if they don't show up like he didn't, could you postpone his showing up for 3 months? In other words, we have other things, no.
No, we do have a lot of statutorily defined deadlines we have to complete tasks by. So the commission could have said, we're not accepting your request for a continuance, we're closing the public hearing and making a decision tonight. You guys could have done that. And that would have been a punishment really to the applicant.
Yeah, I think that the difficulty for the commission, if somebody doesn't show up or they miss a meeting, it shrinks the time frame that you have to have the information and make a decision. But Kelly's right. You can always deny an application. You can even deny it without prejudice and just say, listen, we don't have enough information at this point to make a decision.
Yeah.
And personally, I think these discussions are always useful. See where everybody is and what you think, and whether there's a mechanism by which to do it and whether it makes sense to do it. So, to me, it's just a start of the conversation, not the, you don't have to end it now. You just have to sort of start to think about it, and then, other ideas come in, and, I think it's a great idea. The question is whether, so, what we're supposed to be doing and what we are doing is applying the regulations to the applications that come in. And as you said, whether somebody is, badly behaved, certainly you're going to judge their credibility by, the experts they bring in, what those experts say, what they say. But, at the end, it's applying the regulations to the plan that's as proposed. So, and you do have to treat everyone the same. So, these are all good questions. And I think we should think about it a little more as we're moving through these regulations and making changes.
I mean, it is a good idea. It sounds like a security deposit. I'm going to use that analogy. And, right. I know, and on the surface, it sounds good, but I'm still going to stand by what I said. I think we'd have to have clear criteria as to what it means to meet your obligation, whatever that is.
When they don't show up, it's not in their best interest not to show up.
Well, I agree with that,
I
too.
mean,
So there's the
we have-
punishment in itself.
we
We're all
have-
soured.
Right, we have the ultimate authority. We could deny,
Right.
I don't understand why he didn't show up. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
That was an egregious thing, but it does not happen often. I've never seen it happen except that time.
I think that's
But it's not just, but it's not just when they don't show up, it's when they call it day and they're not showing up. And that has happened multiple times. And so, from my point of view, I'm thinking of it from the point of view of the people that come here at night in weather, and I know they've said to me, well, what kind of penalty do they have? What are they, because they're coming out. And I think that it's really responsible to have some kind of penalty. I like the idea of the fee where if you're not there that night, then the next time you got to pay $500 or whatever it is to come and present, because this was the time that was covered by your initial fee, and now it was postponed. Well, now there's another $500 that you need to pay because you weren't here then. Now, and giving us the ability to waive that, someone has a heart attack, someone in a car accident, it's up to the judgment of the group. But at least we then now have, we have precedent, we have a structure to do it in, and it's telling the people that come that they matter. And that to me is the issue, is that they feel that they don't matter.
And also, we come too. We're here too. We're making our time to come here. We don't get paid, So, anyway.
He just said it was a miscommunication, but it was on the agenda, and I didn't communicate to him that we were not going to have the public hearing, so there was no reason for him to not believe. But that was his statement. But they still do, in this case, they are going to be paying. They have to pay that $500 fee. There was a public hearing scheduled. They decided not to show up.
Right.
In this
still have to
case,
pay.
they do have a penalty. But if they did request a deferral earlier, then that would have been different, and there still could have been some public confusion. So.
I'd like to say one last thing before I call for adjournment. The last month, I've been driving Kelly crazy, calling her a lot. She's been working very, very hard on this Teakwood and Silver Lane and every other thing. So I want to give her, congratulate her. She really went out of her way this month, and I've been bothering her. I hope I don't bother you too much.
Eddie, we need to hire an assistant for her.
I agree. I agree. She probably has the biggest caseload of any superintendent in town as far as I could see.
Thank you, Kelly.
Is it because of how mad I get? My blood was boiling? Is that why?
I'm gonna tell you one thing. I've been on this commission many, many years, okay? And I've seen a lot of superintendents, and they all were pretty good. Some of them were terrible, to be honest with you. They were rotten, okay? I can honestly say Kelly is the best one we've had. I'm not knocking anybody else, but I know what we've had, and I know what she does. And I'm in a unique position to see a lot of things in town, and I can tell you she goes above and beyond. On that note, adjournment.
To adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.